Hello everyone, this is the Archfiend, and today I'm going to make a very positive video about what I consider to be my all-time favorite television show, which is Spartacus on the cable network Starz. I can't put into words just how thoroughly pleased I am with this show, just for total content it provided, the entertainment value, all that. How it was acted, how it was portrayed on screen, how it was, a representation of this true story of this rebel Spartacus that raised an army against the Roman Empire. All those things. And above all else, I just want to make a video saying thank you. Thank you to anyone that was in any way associated with making this television show. Or as they would say on Spartacus, gratitude. Those of us that have watched this show, Spartacus, know all about the word gratitude, and I have nothing but gratitude for this show. Now, for those of you that have watched the show and you didn't see the season finale last Friday yet, I want to let you know I'm going to be talking about a lot of spoilers in this video, so if you don't want the show spoiled for you, turn off the video right now, watch this after, you watch that final episode, or just watch it if you just want to hear what I'm going to talk about here. Anyway. Mainly, I just want to have a discussion. I want to have a discussion about the show with you guys out there that have watched this. Now, I understand it's not everyone's cup of tea. People don't like what could be considered overuse of sexuality, or the people have homophobic tendencies, like they don't like that they have gay storylines or stuff like that. You don't like the gore and all that. Okay, that's fine. Fine, just, voice your piece and move on. That's great. Not everyone likes it. I recognize that. That aside, I want to have a discussion with you guys out there that love this show, that understand this show, that saw it for what it's worth and got as much enjoyment out of it, or maybe not as much enjoyment as I did from the show. This show really only has a cult-like status, and those that watch and got into it just, got borderline fanatical about it. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But this is a show that never really got that mainstream appeal. It's not like a show like The Sopranos that also aired on a pay cable channel and just captivated the entire country with this story of Tony Soprano and his little North Jersey mob operation. This is a show that you're not going to see it get nominated for Oscars, Emmys, though I would love to see them get some sort of, especially the actor that played Crassus, I would love to see him get some sort of supporting actor Emmy nomination, just at least to get nominated. But again, this is a show that not really many people are going to appreciate other than the fans. Have seen very high praise from critics. You see it get high approval ratings on IMDb for each of the 4 seasons that have been made. And I can't even put into words how fucking satisfied I was with how they ended this show. I'm just curious out there to those of you that watch it, because very few of my friends or people I know even watch the show. There's a few of you that I've been talking to online because people know I watch the show Spartacus because Girlfiend's dog is named Crixus, who's named after the character Crixus, who was a true co-leader of the rebellion that Spartacus had against the Roman Empire way back when. So people picked up on little things like that and said, hey, do you watch the show Spartacus? And they've been, just having long email discussions with people after every episode. Like, Girlfiend will see me down at the computer, typing out paragraphs of stuff, and she'll be like, what love letters are you writing today? I'm like, oh, I'm just gaying off with some of my Spartacus friends on the internet. And, it turned into a silly thing that I would just be so captivated that I would watch the show, look forward to every single season, and I would sit there and just be typing out long messages with people, just talking about the show, getting in discussions. What did you think of this and that? And it was so nice to see that extra fan feedback from you guys. Get into something. Those of you that did do the back and forths with me, It was nice to feel that connection on something as trivial as a television show, for lack of a better term. Now, as far as this final episode goes, this was such a masterpiece in the whole colossus of the show put together. There was things that tied the show together from the initial episodes in the first season, like little things like this snake on Agron's shield being the same snake that was on the shield that Spartacus used in Blood in the Sand. You know, just little things like that that were a nod from the writers of saying, you know, here's little things we're going to give you just to recognize the fans that have stuck with us from day one. And, you know, just seeing little things like that, it just made me nostalgic for the show when it first started. And my God, this final episode, again, I hope the actor that plays Crassus gets some sort of nomination, because he stole the show in this final season. His portrayal of Crassus, the character buildup of him being formally trained by a gladiator, because that's the whole thing on this show. This show really built up a perception of that time and era that I kind of just took for granted, because I still love the movie Gladiator, the Russell Crowe movie, but seeing the show Spartacus made me, like, you know, have a cloud of doubt about a movie like that, because it portrayed this guy who was a trained general in the Roman army just, you know, basically get taken captive and become a gladiator and just hold his own with guys that were professional trained gladiators. Now, the show Spartacus establishes by Spartacus being captured, he was a commander, Thracian commander in the Roman army, and when he got taken into a gladiator camp, he got his ass kicked. Like, they fucked him up. And that's the whole point of this show, is that the gladiators were so superior to just the average man, the average soldier, because they were slaves that did nothing but train to fight. They were either fighting or they trained to fight. That was their lives. And it just made me look at a movie like Gladiator, like Russell Crowe. I'm like, yeah, what makes you think he would hold his own with slave fighters? And I'm like, the way they handled this with Spartacus, they made Spartacus be such an inferior entity in this ludus, the Batiatus ludus. Oh boy, it feels good to say that name again. To see him be so inferior right off the bat, just, it really nailed home the point of the show, because that's something that's kind of like, you know, skirted over in any other, specifically the 1960 depiction of Spartacus done by Stanley Kubrick, because Spartacus just comes in and he's an ass kicker right off the bat. But anyway, this show, and I know I'm rambling, there's just so much I want to talk about this show, and again, this is just, you know, for the geeks of the show out there, and anyone else that wants to watch this as well, you're free to watch this as well. Anyways, I don't mean to shun the people that are watching this just for leisure. Anyway, the final episode, getting back into that, now, there was so many things of who's going to die. Well, first of all, some of the things were spoiled as to who was going to die, because for whatever reason, Starz released a soundtrack to this final season, and some of the titles revealed the deaths of who was going to die and how they would die. Like, for an example, one of the songs was called the Crucifixion of Gannicus, or Gannicus's Crucifixion, something like that. So it's like, oh, I guess Gannicus gets crucified, and sure enough, in the final episode, he gets crucified. This final episode, for this being, again, just some sort of cult show, just some sort of show that basically was a co-production by Sam Raimi, to see it get to the level that it did in the final episode, just to depict that final epic battle between Spartacus and the Roman army led by Crassus, I couldn't be more satisfied. I couldn't be more satisfied. And just going up into these final episodes, I was always wondering who's going to die, who's going to live. Seeing people like Naevia killed by Julius Caesar, who, by the way, the actor who did Julius Caesar did a phenomenal job as well. Seeing her get killed. Her death, though, I think was deserved, and I was looking forward to. She was one of the more hated characters in the show, but that's a whole different story. Her death and her dying by the sword, thank you, Christina, her dying by the sword, which was the property of Marcus Crassus' son Tiberius, and nailing home the point of, like, basically anyone who had this sword died. Naevia's husband, I don't actually, did they formally get married? Crixus ends up dying when he has possession of this sword, as does Tiberius, as does Naevia. And it's kind of symbolic because at the end, Julius Caesar leaves with the sword, and we all know his fate, unless you don't read Shakespeare like an old fart like me does. Anyway, her death at the hands of Julius Caesar when she's beaten to a pulp in that battle, and Julius Caesar takes that sword from her and says, "This doesn't belong to you, slave," and then kills her. That just epitomizes just the epic tyranny and the callousness of the Roman Empire and what would soon be Julius Caesar's reign as Roman Empire. Just to affirm that this woman is going to die, and her last words that she hears is being told that she is a slave before she is savagely killed. Just the thoughts and just the way they carry that out, and just how just horrific her death was. It was just so fucking symbolic. And that was one of the minor deaths in this show. I don't even know what I want to even get into next in this final episode, because I do want to primarily talk about this season finale, since that is the one that is on the Spartacus fans' minds right now. The death of Gannicus, seeing him foreshadowing his death, even saying that, you know, he'd be willing to die, you know, to see this cause carried out to another day, or see people still remain free for the cause they were fighting for. I'm paraphrasing what he said early on in the episode. You know he's just walking into a death trap, and you know Spartacus knows the majority of his men are walking in a death trap. Seeing that final scene where Gannicus just gets overwhelmed, and you see the Roman soldiers surrounding him and him flailing his sword, and Julius Caesar walks in, and you're like, my God, Julius Caesar is going to be the one that deals his death. And he just ends up knocking him out. Like, he doesn't kill him. And it's like, wow, what's going on here? And just to see, you know, like, it's like, oh, he's dead for certain. And then the show just throws you a swerve. It's like, why didn't he kill him? And then you get to the final end, where Crassus sends a message and says, I want the road to Rome paved, and this is what was actually done in history. Want the road, it was actually from Capua to Rome, but they didn't clarify that in the final episode. They just said, you know, pave the road to Rome, with the surviving victims of Spartacus's army paved with them being crucified. So the entire road was lined with Spartacus's remaining soldiers just crucified on crosses leading into Rome, just to send the might and power, the message of Rome to everyone. And, you know, just seeing that, and like, again, they depicted that very well in the Stanley Kubrick 1960 film of Spartacus. Seeing Gannicus meet his end, and seeing him included with the men that are being crucified, and seeing Crassus and Caesar stand at him saying a mighty warrior he once was, and, you know, all that other shit. Seeing him crucified and taking that moment of sadness and conclusion for his character, to him just like drifting in euphoria, and seeing his former doctore, Oenomaus, appear before him, and have him envision that he is in the middle of the gladiator arena, and he's just screaming a triumphant yell as he's dying, just knowing that he is dying a happy man. It's like, I don't know how the show managed to pull it off, but they did. They had one of the key characters die, and you're satisfied because he finds a way to die happily. I was just like, I don't know what else this show has in store for me, but man, Spartacus and Crassus, the final battle between these two. Crassus is basically taken away by some Roman soldiers because Spartacus is gaining an advantage on him, and he's about to kill him on the battlefield. So some Roman soldiers take Crassus away up to a hill where it's about 10 or so soldiers and Crassus, and up on the hill, and one of the greatest shots, one of the greatest cinemassacre, oh boy, that's a Freudian slip. Not really Freudian at all, but anyway, one of the greatest cinema shots that they had here was showing Spartacus running in slow motion when Crassus is like, no, fuck that, I want to go back down and fight. I can't be, turned away by these rebels just because, they're gaining a little bit of an advantage. And then you see Spartacus running in slow motion up that hill. He's outnumbered 11-1, and he just goes through every single one of those fucking Roman guards that's protecting Crassus. And he's standing there just saying, let's get this on. And Crassus is like, take my life if you can. And he picks up both those swords. And I'm just like, oh my God. Now, conventional wisdom would tell you that Crassus would not last in a fight to Spartacus, but they preface this with Spartacus was beaten down, tired. He just went through 10 guys, which wasn't an easy feat for him to do. And Crassus, as was established in episode 1, was formally trained by a gladiator champion. So he knows what it's like to be trained by someone who has done nothing in his life other than fight, well, other than his slave life, as fight or train to fight. He has an appreciation, and that is the thing that is so established. And just backtracking for a second, one of my favorite sequences in this show was when Crassus invites Spartacus up to the hill just to basically show him his army and tell him, look, there's unfavorable odds for you, you're gonna die. And Spartacus knows the odds are not in his favor. He even addresses that with Gannicus later on in the episode, where he goes, Gannicus says, yeah, we've beaten odds before and I'm not going to bet against you now. But even Spartacus says, look, we're fucking outnumbered. We're probably going to die. And he deals with that. But going back to that meeting where Crassus and Spartacus have on that hill, it's basically at that point that a mutuality is established. And I was not expecting this from the show. I was expecting that Crassus would basically go into fighting Spartacus and basically see him as no more than rebel, slave, Thracian scum. But this episode established that Crassus has nothing but the utmost respect for him and appreciates the man that Spartacus is. Now, Crassus is a true Roman and he will defend Rome. That's never lost in any of this. But the story that this show told of tying together the relationship that Spartacus and Crassus have as enemies and turns it into just a true, you're my enemy, but I see where you're coming from, I understand what you're doing, and I can at least respect that, but I'm going to try and kill you. That whole scene where they have that meeting and Crassus turns his back to Spartacus just to basically show him that, one, that he trusts him, but two, that he doesn't fear him. Crassus could have died then and there, and Spartacus knows he could have killed him. But Crassus had that much respect for him that he was willing to turn his back on him. And seeing something like that and seeing the story told to that end, I couldn't believe it. I just could not believe how well written that show was. That final episode, on top of the whole show, the final episode just took my fucking breath away, as cliche as that is to sound. But seeing that final battle, and seeing the beaten down Spartacus fight Crassus, and you see Crassus is actually holding his own, because Crassus is, to many respects, more trained and better adept to fighting than a lot of his soldiers are. So you know he's going to give Spartacus a run for his money in that given circumstance right there. I thought Spartacus was dead. The second Crassus pulled that move that he pulled in episode 1 when he was fighting his gladiator trainer, when he grabbed Spartacus's sword with his bare hands and did that little reversal move where he was going to throw it right into Spartacus's ribs. I was like, that's it. This is how it's going to end. And I would have been totally satisfied. And then it happened. The last possible second, Spartacus grabs the sword at the same time in his bare hands, while both men's hands are bleeding and they're in agonizing pain. I was just like, that is like the point in the movie theater where everyone stands up and gives a standing ovation because you cannot just fucking believe what happened. I was so certain Spartacus was dead. The number of curveballs that were thrown in this final episode were just astounding. I couldn't believe it. Again, it was breathtaking. As I choke on my words there. Spartacus does eventually die. And of some of the people that I've talked to about this, some people have contention with how Spartacus dies. Now, it's no secret that Spartacus was either going to have to disappear like what happened in the actual living of Spartacus, that his body was never found, so it's unknown if Crassus killed him, buried him in a hole, never showed him to anyone, whatever the case may be. Spartacus is not going to come out of this with a happy ending. How he dies is another curveball. He's simply stabbed in the back with spears by grunt soldiers. Grunt soldiers see him fighting Crassus on the hill. They throw spears at him from behind, and that's it. Now, a lot of people would say, wow, the show ended like that? Like, he won all these great... This is the bringer of rain. This is the guy that slayed the mighty Theocles. And he dies with a spear to the back by grunt soldiers who we never even get the names of. At first, I was kind of stunned at this, but then I was like, it makes sense. It makes absolute sense, because it is the one way that Crassus can lose. Yes, Crassus and his soldiers wiped out Spartacus's army and they won the battle. Crassus knows that he is not the better man than Spartacus, because Spartacus was about to slay him and he had to be saved. Crassus had to be saved by his own men because Crassus could not do it on his own. Crassus then basically portrays that in the final minutes of the episode when Pompey comes over with his men from the north and says, yeah, we slayed some of the rebels that were escaping and we've claimed victory upon this day. And Caesar's like, that's bullshit. We have slayed Spartacus and all the men here and we deserve credit for this day. And Crassus stops Caesar and says, history will note that Pompey and his men were victorious upon this day. Now, some people I talked to about this show, I don't think understood the true meaning of why Crassus said that to Pompey. That's basically his way of saying, I don't deserve credit for this day. I do not deserve credit for the victory because the only victory I wanted was to kill Spartacus, was to defeat Spartacus, and I could not do it. So basically the show ends with, in my opinion, what is Crassus was the loser. And Crassus, I mean, he's so bitter, he gets so relentless that he crucifies his house pussy to a cross at the end. And even Caesar is like, God damn, it's sad to see, what was once loved get, so beastly destroyed. And Crassus just basically is kind of like, yeah, well, it is what it is. Fuck her. I'm pissed. And like that's kind of the message I got from the end of the show. And that's maybe not so much pissed, maybe that's the wrong word, but humbled, because he knows that he flat out could not beat Spartacus and was truly defeated that day. And seeing Spartacus getting saved by Agron at the last minute, basically when he has an ounce of life left, getting taken to the hill, finding out that basically finding all the details of the day out, finding out that he lost, and seeing the rain once again fall on the bringer of rain the second he dies, I was like, oh my God. Such an epic conclusion, such a complete, satisfying story that was told. And again, my fucking gratitude to anyone that had anything to do with the making of this show. My God, I named the girl fiend's dog Crixus after Crixus, the former champion of Capua and the undefeated Gaul. And if anyone from the show ever saw this and like even just acknowledged me on Twitter or anything, I would just be floored. You know, just small hope for a dream of a little man here. Anyway, thank you to everyone that watched this show and made this, because we the viewers helped make this show get into more seasons as well, because who knows, this show could have been scrapped after the first season if damn near no one gave it any attention. So the fans and everyone deserve thanks as well, on top of the writers and everyone who acted and it was any sort of part of making this show. So anyway, one last thing. The credits of this show. I have never ever appreciated the credits for a television show in the history of my life. The credits were arguably my favorite part of this season finale. Mainly because it was so nostalgic. They basically put up pictures of the past actors, the groups that were with the bad guys, the good guys, and who was in which clique and all this other stuff. This show ends, and what should be noted here in the end of this video, it noted the end of the passing of Andy Whitfield. For those of you who don't know, the show Spartacus started with an actor by the name of Andy Whitfield who played the role of Spartacus. He died in real life. Very tragically, cancer, I do believe. And that basically put a lot of fans up there go, what's going to happen to the show? Oh my god, the lead actor of the show just literally fucking died. And like the fans were panicking, and this guy Ian, I almost said Ian McKellen, fuck, I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head. Anyway, the new guy did Spartacus, sorry to disrespect you by not remembering your name here. My apologies, or just apologies as they say on the show. This new guy came in, did a phenomenal job, but the show did what I felt was best, was it gave the final moment of the show to Andy Whitfield, and it ended with that sequence in, I want to say it was like episode 3 or 4 of Blood in the Sand, where Andy Whitfield turns to the camera and shouts, "I am Spartacus." And that's how the show ends. My god. As if my breath couldn't be taken away anymore by this silly little television show. It just decides to throw that in at the end and just fully completes this epic story and television show. So anyway, that concludes my epic little video here that went on way too long. Again, those of you that watch and enjoy this show, please leave your comments. I love talking about this show. I've tried to answer damn near every email and message I've gotten about this show, because this was so much more than a show to me. This was my television entertainment life. There was nothing I looked forward to on television more than this, and it's over now. It's done. I got nothing left to look forward on this show. I know they're talking about the Stephen DeKnight is supposedly in production to make a Julius Caesar show, which is going to include the Caesar and the Crassus from the Spartacus show, but that's all rumors for now. So until then, I got my handy-dandy Blu-rays here. I'm going to go start marathoning this show from episode 1. Get some more Andy Whitfield entertainment. By the way, invest in Blu-rays of these shows is the only way to go as far as I'm concerned. Added content, and it looks great. Anyway, cheap plug. That's all I got to say about this, guys. Have a great day. That is all.